What's going on, everybody? It's that time again. It's the Sooners Illustrated Podcast, episode 71 on this Monday, April 1st, 2024. Josh Callaway, James D. Jackson, Tom Green with you on a Monday. The calendar has shifted to April. The spring game is 19 days away. Spring camp is rolling on. We'll, of course, hit on some spring camp stuff, names to watch that we're hearing good things about, positions. We wrapped practice again last Wednesday. I actually got to take some video and photos, stuff like that. We'll break that all down a little bit. Also, big recruit get for Oklahoma. They committed Tory Blaylock. We'll talk about that a little bit as well. And the transfer portal continues to heat up for hoops. More guys are jumping in. We'll react to that a little bit as well on the back end of the program. But, guys, let's, of course, first start with spring camp. So tomorrow, the team is practicing. It's going to be a Tuesday, Thursday this week as far as availability goes for us on the media side. Tomorrow's practice 7. They have 14 practices before the spring game is that 15th practice, how it goes down on April 20th. So they're just about halfway through, getting close to the midway point of spring camp, just shy of it. Like I said, we were at practice last Wednesday, got to see practice again for basically all of it, pretty close to all of it, a very big chunk of it. Then we talked to more players afterward. So I figured I'd just kind of bring it in with some spring camp, just what you guys are hearing, guys that have impressed you so far, things that you took away from the interviews afterward, kind of a free-flowing. I'll just open up the floor. I certainly have a few guys I wanted to bring up, but Tom, you can jump in if you'd like to start with just anything that has stuck out to you so far in this early part of spring.
Yeah, I'm going to go off the beaten path real quick.
Sure.
With something that's really impressed me. Brent Venables and Mike Hauk, Oklahoma's sports information director, impressed because just like the level of access that we've gotten the last week, like we've watched more than 2 hours of practice, which is just a lot. That's really good access. We've gotten to see more than just stretching and individual periods. It gives us an opportunity to get a better idea of, what these guys are up to, who's really standing out right now. Just an up-close look that we don't normally get any other time of year. And I know certainly like last spring, you guys didn't get that much, viewing periods like that. So quick shout out to them for opening it up to us the way they have the last week. Hopefully there's going to be more coming, these next couple weeks of spring practice, but just
and the video on Wednesday too. Cause for me, so as the video guy, the first practice was great. The fact that we got to be out there for so long, but it really was a bummer that we didn't get to do any video or photo. And I know fans fans are dying for that stuff. Yeah. And so the fact that they then kind of met us in the middle, they didn't let us shoot the whole thing, but they gave us a good enough chunk of it. It was about half-ish, a little less than half, to get some video. I know James got a bunch of photos we've been using. I had a bunch of video I put up on the YouTube channel. It's our most viewed video on the channel ever, the spring practice highlight video of last week, because fans they're dying for it. They want to see it, and so I'm with you, Tom. Major appreciation, because they don't have to do that. The previous coach didn't do that. And so appreciate it a lot for sure.
Yeah. As far as on the field, the players, I want to highlight a few guys on the defensive line that have, really stood out to me these first couple of weeks. Starting with Grayson Halton. We heard a lot about him just in the offseason, kind of how he was taking on more of a leadership role. He's a guy that was, really stepping up, especially when they had a void kind of at defensive tackle, so many guys leaving, so much production leaving. And then the news of Jacob Lacey having to retire right before the start of spring practices. So Grayson Halton has really stepped up. He was really impressive in the one-on-one pass rushing drills that we saw during that Wednesday practice. Jaden Jackson's another guy that, for a true freshman, he looks every bit of the height and weight they list him at. He's we heard good things from the moment he stepped on campus for those bowl practices back in December, and he's looked the part. They're going to need him, especially with how little returning depth that they have at defensive tackle, and he looks like he's a guy that's going to be able to come in and contribute right away if he keeps it up. And then just another one, when we were watching that one-on-one pass rushing period, saw a lot of guys get opportunities, but then at the very end, Brent Venables told Bill Bedenbow and told Miguel Chavis to get their best on best. Bill Bedenbow picked out Jacob Sexton, who's obviously someone who's got starting experience, but they've kind of moved him around with different groups so far this spring from what he's watching. He's not always been with that first group, even though we kind of expect him to be the starting left tackle at this point. But to pick Jacob Sexton to go against Ethan Downs, obviously leading sack guy the last 2 years. Obviously, that's an area they want to improve, but for Downs to still be the top guy, for better or for worse, I don't know. There's a couple different ways to look at that, I guess. Is that, okay, maybe he's taking that next step to kind of up his production, or, maybe they don't have the other guys where they need them to be. But obviously, pass rush is an area that we're all kind of looking at, and a lot of fans were kind of disappointed with last season, just the production, even though there were some other things that went into it other than just the raw numbers, just the way kind of offenses schemed against them and the quick releases and all that. But yeah, those three guys along the defensive line have kind of caught my eye from last week's practices and from what we've heard.
Yeah, I'm very high on Jaden Jackson, as Tom is mentioned. I mean, I've been talking about him since we first got a look at, David Stone, and the two guys coming together as a pair was what it all looked like. But Jaden Jackson, I mean, man, he could be just as good as Stone, man, if he gets everything situated the way he wants to, because he already has the size, as Tom mentioned. I mean, he looks really good out there. He looks really good. And I'm gonna beat this drum till the music ends, man. Deion Burks is the guy, man. He's going to be the guy for me. I mean, he's been the most impressive for me. I just wrote this article on the VIP side. Like, he's awesome, man. And I could see the kind of, he watched Drake Stoops and saw what that slot position was. I could see the similarities in his game, and he has a little more quickness to him. So, I mean, he looks pretty good, and I think he'll be very beneficial in that offense. I mean, we also talk about Barra Sharp, who's a guy that I've been kind of high on after I saw him. As at the tight end, because I didn't know who was going to start at the tight end position. I don't think any of us kind of knew, but it seems like Bauer's getting those first reps with the guys, and he looks pretty good so far. So, I mean, of the three that I want to just point out right there, those are the three I want to say. So,
yeah, I'd piggyback off that Bauer Sharp thing. He's been out there getting the first team reps. Part of that is that Jake Roberts has been, a little bit limited. He's
hurt right now.
Been with the guys getting some rehab during practices. And I expect Jake Roberts to have a role just because of his familiarity and past production playing for Seth Luttrell. Bauer Sharp has looked really impressive, and it looks like he's a guy that can do some different things for them. And obviously, you kind of expect that. He's a guy that, high school in Alabama, played quarterback, was recruited as a quarterback, moved over to tight end. So he's got kind of, a little bit more knowledge of how an offense works just from his background as a quarterback, while still kind of getting acclimated as a tight end. We've talked about it a lot. A lot of teams were really high on him when he entered the transfer portal, even though he was an FCS guy. He had a lot of offers, a lot of interest. So I'm been really impressed with what I've seen from him on the practice field so far, and just curious to see how that room kind of shakes out, because, we've discussed it. That's a room that looks a lot different and a lot better than it did a year ago. I want to see, like, when push comes to shove, how do they use these guys? Who's going to get the reps? But Bauer Sharp has definitely been a guy that's caught our eyes so far.
Bauer seemed like the guy that's going to be, like, in the passing game, who's going to be the threat for you. Like, he's going to be the guy to come in to catch passes and things like that. I mean, I haven't got a lot of looks at Jake Roberts, but I think Bauer's is, like, his skill set, like his size and skill set for what he brings. And as you said, Tom, knowing like an offense from a quarterback's perspective, I think that'll help him out a lot, especially in the passing game, because it'll help him find those empty parts of the field and run his routes in certain ways to get open. So I like that. I like that about him.
Yeah, sticking with that tight end room, we got to talk to Caden Helms, last week, and he's kind of the forgotten man on the team a little bit, really the whole team, especially the offense, though. Because, I mean, and I'm guilty of it, too. No, I'm not excluding myself. You bring in Devon Mitchell, who we're all crazy over, and for good reason. And Bauer Sharp's been so great so far, and we all think Jake Roberts, this veteran who knows Seth Luttrell, that's a great fit. Kind of just forgetting about this guy who was pretty highly touted out of high school. I think going into last year was thought of as a guy who would factor in, but he was just banged up the whole year, never get on the field. And so they ended up just playing Austin Stogner a crazy amount of snaps, and the tight end room was not very productive. We talked about that at length, during the season and since. And just kind of getting to talk to him last week, and just the kind of almost exhaustion that you could feel coming off of him, of like, I'm just glad I'm able to be out here. Like, you could tell last year was hard for him. And so I don't know where he's going to factor in. I have no idea, but I just want to make sure he's not forgotten, and for myself to not forget him, because he's a guy who's very talented, going to his third year now. He's been around with Joe John. He knows the program. He's not new. So I think that Caden Helms could be a guy that let us just not forget him, and we continue to factor him into the equation because he's a talented guy. And he was billed as a pass catcher. It was supposed to be him and Jason Llewellyn supposed to be those guys. Jason Llewellyn's more your blocker. Caden Helms is more your pass catcher. Obviously, Jason Llewellyn's no longer here. Caden Helms has been banged up, so it hasn't worked out that way. But we'll see how it shakes out. But I'm looking forward to seeing more of him as we go along the next few weeks.
Yeah, and I wrote about Caden Helms this morning on the site, just off of what we got from him, speaking to him last week. And, kind of dawned on me. It's like, you lost 3 guys in, Austin Stogner, Blake Smith, who are your 2 most utilized tight ends, and then Jason Llewellyn transferring out. Bringing in the 3 guys between Jake Roberts, Bauer Sharp, and Devon Mitchell, but getting, Caden Helms back from injury, it's kind of like a bonus 4th addition to that room because you didn't really have him last year. And he's a guy, even when we spoke to Joe John Finley before the Alamo Bowl back in December, he was really high on him and just how he approached his, recovery process like a pro. Talked about how much stronger he was in the weight room, especially upper body strength. Said he's probably one of the stronger guys that they have there from that aspect. And it's just going to take him some time kind of getting used to that new strength after being off the field for essentially a year. And he's still a little limited right now. He said, he's dealing with some things that aren't related to the knee injury. Sure. But he expects to be back soon. And he's eager to just carve out his own role in that room, whatever it's going to be. But, I think, I can speak for all of us when I say we're a lot higher on that position group overall than we were last season, because that was a clear weakness on this team. And they definitely have multiple options if these guys can stay healthy and get on the field.
Yeah, it's just having the options. I mean, that's the biggest difference. I mean, you can throw either of them out there and they'll be really productive. I mean, it'll be good, man. I mean, we talked about Caden Helms. I mean, he was a 4-star coming out of high school and things like that. So, I mean, he's good, man. He's good. I mean, we know that. We know all the other guys around him can be productive, and that's the biggest thing.
A few other rapid fire names here, and the lowest of low hanging fruit. But Jackson Arnold looks great, very sharp. I mean, he does. They had a scrimmage last week, and that's not open to media, but we heard good things about how he performed, and he, you can tell. I mean, when I think back to last spring. Obviously, he's always looked great, throwing on air. He's got great arm talent. He's very accurate. He's, all those things that everybody already knows. He's Elite 11 MVP, all those things that you don't get that if you're not good in those kind of scenarios. But he does look more relaxed and kind of natural leading that room and kind of taking the first reps and shouting out direction to his receiver, just little things like that. He seems more comfortable to me than, last spring, which is to be expected. It's year 2, and he's the guy now. So Jackson Arnold looks fantastic. Excited to see him actually, on the field here in a few weeks in the game. Caleb Hicks looks great. Just as far as looking the part, I mean, just
he looks like a dude.
Literally. Yeah, he's a monster. He's only going to be a sophomore, obviously, this year, second year. That room is so interesting. We talked about it a lot because Salchuk's your guy. Javonte Barnes also looks great. You brought in Sam Franklin. It's kind of like you're probably not going to really use 4 running backs. So, how's that all going to shake out? But Caleb Hicks looks fantastic. So
and Taylor Tatum arrives in the summer.
Right. Xavier Robinson's still floating around. And Emeka Megwal looks pretty good too. I know he's had some very substantial injuries, but that guy looks pretty good too. I mean, it's a deep room, and he looks really good. As far as the O-line, which I know has been a hot topic. Only heard good things about Bechi Nwewu so far. I think we all kind of penciled him in as a starter when they added him in the portal. I think that's probably a safe bet as of now. It's April. They don't play games for another 5 months. But I think as of now, you're hearing good things. I'm continuing to hear good things about Heath Ozida, too. And he's an interesting name because so far Gary Hatchett has been banged up, who is another guy that we think is going to probably start. But he's been banged up through camp so far. So kind of similar to what we're saying about Bauer Sharp with the tight ends. We haven't really got to see Jake Roberts and Bauer Sharp's doing all the Heath Ozida is kind of that for one of those guard spots right now because Hatchett just hasn't been there. And so Ozida he's impressing. I don't know if he's going to start or something, but Heath Ozida is making waves. He's a name that's been a hot button name so far the last few weeks. And then the last one for me, Jacoby Johnson is another one who continues to impress in that cornerback room. Didn't see him at all last year, obviously. And crazy talented kid out of Mustang. James knows. He saw him. He played basketball. He was really good. He was an
all-time athlete.
All-time athlete. Play hoops. He also was a receiver. There was a thought he might play offense at OU, end up playing defense. heard great things. His frame, he's a guy. He's a guy. At some point, he's a guy. It's a matter of when, not if, with Jacoby Johnson. So he's having a great camp so far too, from what I've heard. But
one name I'm surprised you did not mention was one Jimmy Greenbeans.
Yeah, QB1 apparently he won the job.
Won the job, man.
For football.
Well, we're still talking about quarterbacks too. I got one more name that I forgot to throw in there.
Sure.
Did you guys see General? I mean, taking his reps? Does he look more poised now? Like he looks pretty good to me.
Good.
Like we haven't got a chance to see Casey Thompson, out there yet. I don't think. If I just missed it,
he's in pad. He's not really doing anything because he's
He was doing some handoffs, but he hasn't been doing like the
throwing. Yeah, like I've liked what Generals look like so far. I mean, he's done a pretty good job. Seemed like he's got a better mechanic type of situation now, and I think he looks pretty good, man.
Yeah,
actually, yeah.
I've been impressed with what I've seen from Michael Hawkins so far. Like he's got a pretty good arm. Seen him make some good throws during skeleton drills and stuff like that. He's kind of the guy that's been in the mix for those number 2 reps behind Jackson Arnold since Casey Thompson isn't really throwing right now. For a true freshman, just interesting to see his development moving forward because obviously Jackson Arnold's a guy for the next couple of years at least. So it's really about developing the guys behind him. But I like what I've seen from Michael Hawkins, and then just on the other side of the ball, no one really specifically, but just in general, when you look at how much they're returning defensively, especially at all 3 levels of the defense. Kind of the flexibility that they have personnel wise, we're seeing that because they have so many guys that are familiar with this defense now. You're seeing more guys kind of move around and get reps at various positions. Woody Washington's getting some time at safety and Cheetah. Deshaun McCullough's still focusing a lot on Cheetah, but he's playing a lot of inside linebacker too. Kendall Dolby's moving between Cheetah and corner and safety. They're just moving a lot of these guys around to kind of experiment and again develop more competitive depth. When push comes to shove, I still think Woody Washington's going to mostly play cornerback this season. Yeah. But to be able to experiment with different packages where you can move him over to safety or Cheetah or what have you, and get some of these other guys on the field too with him. I think it's only going to help this defense improve, even further because we talked about the improvements that they made from year 1 to year 2, and now they're bringing so many key pieces back. We expect them to take another step forward in year 3 as they move to the SEC.
Listen, it's going to be a good football team. It's going to be a good football team. And I think it kind of goes back to our season preview where we kind of rated each position group and where we felt about them. And I think getting to see them in action, I mean, it kind of solidifies everything that we already thought. This is going to be a really good football team. The offensive line is the one area where you don't know what's going to happen yet because we don't know who's the starters, how they're going to gel. But everywhere else, all the position groups, the skill groups and everything like that, it looks pretty good, man. There's 2 or 3 guys that can go out there and play, and you'd be comfortable with them on the field. So I think that's what it is right now.
I agree. No, there seems to be a lot of depth, really all over the field right now, which is a good place to be in, obviously. And we'll continue to watch it. Like I said, they've had 6 practices so far, so still a little over half a spring camp to go. We're not sure what we're going to get in terms of access this week to practice and things like that, but they are practicing tomorrow and Thursday. At the very least, we are anticipating some player interviews and stuff like that to come. So be plugged into the YouTube channel, obviously the site for all the updates and stuff from that. As we continue to spring camp and the spring game, just 19 days away on April 20th. So looking forward to that coming up very, very soon. Elsewhere for Oklahoma, on the recruiting side of things, big dub on Friday. Tory Blaylock committed to the Sooners. This is a guy that, I talked about him with Colin a couple of times, and we did a little kind of last-minute update on Thursday. He had a crystal ball in, felt good about it, and ended up playing out that way. He committed to Oklahoma on Friday. Unfamiliar, composite number 17 running back in the class. He's a 4-star kid from Humble, Texas. He's actually the 3rd highest commit they have right now. They only have 10. It's still pretty early in the 2025 cycle, but he's their 3rd highest guy they have right now. Actually moved him into the top 5 of team recruitings for a moment, and there was some other movement. Now they're back down to 6th, but they're still obviously up there. Very good group so far being put together. His actual commitment, I don't know if you guys watched it.
Yeah, I saw it. Yeah.
Wild move, unhinged move a little bit. Put a Texas hat on and then someone in his family, I can't remember who, put a horns down arrow or an arrow behind him to kind of signify horns down, and then he flipped it for a OU hat, which is a wild move. There had to have been at least some OU fans that their heart was in their throat for like 5 seconds because this was a guy that they thought they were getting, and then they weren't, and then they were again. But this is a great get. Obviously, this comes right on the heels of keeping DeMarco Murray. They got extension. We talked about that with Colin on Thursday. Like, this almost certainly does not happen if you lose DeMarco Murray. Also, Ohio State was a finalist where DeMarco Murray was rumored to maybe be going. So this is an immediate recruiting win you probably wouldn't have got if you lose DeMarco Murray. But this kid's really good. They stay hot on the running back side. DeMarco Murray's recruiting at a super high level. Another win for OU on the recruiting trail, obviously.
Yeah, I was going to mention the Ohio State part, just Ohio State being one of the finalists for Blaylock. And, DeMarco Murray kind of put out the bat signal for this commitment a few weeks back, with his Yamaha tweet. And then the whole Ohio State stuff came kind of like right after that. Mm-hmm. So, obviously this kid informed the coaching staff a few weeks back. DeMarco Murray talks to Ohio State, eventually, re-ups with Oklahoma, stays here. You have to think that if DeMarco Murray wound up taking that job at Ohio State, that Tory Blaylock probably was going to follow suit. So just being able to keep DeMarco and land this commitment is big for that running back room. And, even when we talked to Javonte Barnes, a week and a half ago, or last week rather, he talked a lot about, he didn't know what all was going on behind the scenes with DeMarco Murray, but he was just happy that he was sticking around because, that's why he came to Oklahoma. He was glad, he wants to play for him. We talked about it a little bit last week on the show. James mentioned how, DeMarco helped him deal with the frustrations of the injuries last year and all that. He's a big piece of that room, and he's obviously recruiting at a high level. And, just a matter of getting that production up with this group after what was kind of a down year overall, as they kind of had to strap together a rotation for the first half of the season before Gavin Sawchuk got healthy and kind of took the reins.
Yeah, I mean, Tory's a guy that I got to interview a couple of weeks ago, and he was already talking really, really well about the Oklahoma coaching staff and the culture and the environment. And I think you saw his father's tweets as well. Like, his father was always like, OU's a really good tradition, really good family, things like that. You saw a lot of that. So the writing was on the wall here. I mean, the crystal balls were coming in. I put one in. It was late, but I put one in. But, there was some good things you could talk about with Tory and the way he felt about OU. And I don't know if everybody's seen it, but his relay team, his on the track. I mean, setting was it the all-time record or something like that in high school? Like,
something good, yeah.
It was phenomenal. When Colin put the story up, I just quote speed. That's all I put. Speed underneath his name. That's all it is. Like, he's a guy that's going to have the speed, and I know that seems like what DeMarco Murray is going after right now, because you also saw it with Caden Durham as well, who they just missed out on. But speed is what OU wants, and it seems like that's what they're getting right now.
Well, like Zion Raggins too, right? He had like I can't remember what he actually measured in at, but it was like borderline Olympic speed in high school. Yeah, you're right. High school. Some of these guys, OU's gonna have a pretty solid
and Eddie Pierre-Louis.
Yes.
Hey, let me tell you something.
An offensive lineman, that guy can scoot.
Oh, that's funny. That's funny. This isn't Speed D talking though. This is like actual stuff.
Don't bring that up.
OU fans,
they're gonna have a pretty solid like a track and field team. On the football side, no, that's for sure. So great get here. Obviously, Tory Blaylock's really talented, and you beat out. I mean, the biggest tell if you know nothing about recruiting and you watch tape and you have no idea, like you're like, I don't know what I'm seeing. Yeah, he looks great, but like, how do I know? Just look at the other offers, and the other guys are in his finalists. Texas, Ohio State. I mean, he had a laundry list of. It's not a coincidence that all of what I mean. So. Good win for Oklahoma, and really talented player, and so look forward to seeing him down the road, obviously. But that 2025 class continues to kind of come together. Like I said, they're in the top 5 for a moment. There's currently 6 in our team rankings right now using composite, so they're right up there in the mix to land another very highly thought of class, and still obviously a lot more big fish hanging out there as we're still early in 2025. Mm-hmm. Shifting over to hoops to wrap up. Transfer portal is going. It's ablazing. We had Otega Owa hop in. We talked about that last week. 2 more have since jumped in. John Hugley, who of course played OU for 1 year, came from Pitt. Was the backup big to Sam Godwin. Was pretty good for most of the year. had a hard time staying on the court. His endurance was probably not where it really needed to be a lot of the season. Then he ended up getting hurt in that Bedlam game, and we just never saw him again after that, and they missed him. And then Milos Uzan, which is a kind of a tough blow from the just kind of fan perspective. I think fans liked Los. He was kind of the face of the team coming into the year, at least. Made a lot of starts last 2 years, was a Porter guy. They signed him along with Ortega, so that class is just now gone. So these two guys hit the portal. Not hugely unexpected, Tom. These were kind of the three when you talk about these two and Ortega that we kind of thought would happen. So, yeah, I mean, you hate to have this massive roster turnover, but it's inevitable almost. It's unavoidable, frankly, in college hoops at this point. And so now you lose these two guys. Where are you kind of at on these two guys moving on? OU fans, I think, are trying to figure out how to feel about it. How should they feel about it, losing these two?
Yeah. Well, first of all, they still have one member of that 2022 class, Luke Northweather. Don't forget about Luke.
Here we go.
Yeah, but no.
He didn't play last year. He redshirted, so it throws me off. You're right.
Yeah.
But no, these were kind of the three names that were at the top of the list of guys to keep an eye on. So I don't think we were too surprised. Now it's kind of, making sure you can keep the other guys.
Yeah.
Especially because just the way things changed over the last however many months when, the NCAA started allowing multiple time transfers. Now you have to re-recruit guys like Javion McCollum and Jalen Moore and make sure they're staying and not just, going 1 year and then moving on, kind of like John Hugley is. That wasn't something you had to worry about when you first landed them because you thought, okay, we got them. They used their one-time transfer. This is how we're going to build this team moving forward. Now you have to constantly, recruit your own roster and make sure these guys are staying. But the Los one is a little bit tougher to swallow, I think, for fans, just because he's been your starting point guard for 2 years. He started 56 of the 64 games over the last two seasons.
Yeah,
he had some clear areas of growth this year. He looked a little bit more aggressive, looking for his own shot at times. His points per game were up, his assists were up, but his shooting percentages were down across the board, kind of, and he just wasn't as consistent. And I think that's one of the things that you really need to keep in mind as this team, is looking to improve, is you need upgrades throughout this roster. Certainly need another front court piece after John Hugley leaves, assuming Sam Godwin comes back for his additional year, as expected. But, you just need some more consistent play and scoring threat from the top, from your backcourt. And that starts at point guard. I think Milos Uzan is still a very talented player. I don't think he reached his potential at Oklahoma. Sometimes you just feel like you need a fresh start. As for the Hugley move, again, that's another one we kind of expected, especially after the way his season ended. Missed the last 8 games due to that meniscus injury. And you mentioned it. His minutes per game were down year over year. It seemed like he struggled a little bit with conditioning and, just not being able to play more than 18 minutes a game. If you can bring in a center forward, whatever have you, who can play 20 to 24 minutes a game, so you don't necessarily have to rely on Sam Godwin to play 25, 26 minutes a game and get maybe more of a little bit more of an even split, or someone that you feel can start above Sam. Just another way to upgrade this roster. But, they've got 4 spots now to fill. We'll see if anybody else jumps in the portal, but I think 4 spots right now is a good baseline to work with. See what they can do. Obviously, we've discussed some of the guys that they've offered. They just got into the Final Four for Zeke Mayo, who
that's quite a Final Four, by the way, too. I had it pulled up because Creighton, Kansas, Texas, and OU.
Yeah, and keep in mind he's
doing a good job. He's at least selling something because he's in the mix for a lot of these guys.
Yeah, and the kid's a Lawrence native, and he's got a visit planned to Kansas. That's going to be a tough pull, especially if he's looking to try to get home. But to make the Final Four with that group, obviously Kansas, you know what they are as a blue blood. Texas had a good season, good run in the postseason. Creighton too, made it to the second weekend. So you're in the mix for some of these quality transfers. You just need to be able to land the guys to upgrade the talent on this roster.
100%. And also, Kevin Overton from West Virginia is Oklahoma kid that they're chasing. Sean Padula, another Oklahoma kid.
They're going after the OK
Virginia
Press.
Tech that they're trying, which is a good strategy. And also we talked about Brandon Garrison before as well. So, they're trying. And like you said, Tom, the question now is, these are the three guys that we felt pretty good. The rest of them, it's kind of, I don't know. J.V. McCollum and Jalen Moore, obviously the big two. Because you played 8 guys, essentially, last year, right? You're losing a couple of them to graduation, and now you lost 3 of them to the portal. So that's 5 of your 8 that you played. The other 3 are Godwin, McCollum, and Moore. Godwin's going to be back. I'd be surprised if he wasn't. McCollum and Moore, though, have a decision to make. They have to decide if they want to be back or not. It's hard to say. Like I said, I haven't really heard a lot of 100% one way or another. McCollum might want to test those NBA waters. We've kind of speculated on that. Jalen Moore, I don't know. So that's the question I'm moving forward is, can you keep those guys, Caden Cooper too? Will you be able to retain those guys? Because if you can retain those guys and add a couple of these other names I just mentioned, you've improved your roster in my opinion. So I don't know. We'll see. It's crazy, but if you do lose McCollum and Moore, you're basically starting over again, which is
and you don't want to do that going into year 4. Yeah.
So I don't know. It's been kind of starting from scratch every year, and so you'd like to have something to build on. And right now, I think you have that. But if you lose McCollum and Moore, and you're kind of, like I said, you're kind of starting over again. So we'll see. I think that's it. Good show, concise show. We'll be back obviously next week, and I'll be back with Colin later this week. Like we said, spring practice stuff is scheduled for Tuesday, Thursday. So keep up with the YouTube channel, of course, and on the site for all the updates from camp. They continue to talk to these guys. We're expecting to hopefully get some coaches at some point too. That's not 100%, but that's the hope. So keep an eye out for that at some point. And we'll continue to bring you spring camp coverage. Like I said, Colin will be back with me on Thursday. Get some other recruiting stuff and whatever other camp stuff we need to get into and whatever else. We'll get into that on the Thursday show. The 3 of us will be back probably next Monday, maybe Tuesday, depending on the spring camp. I think they're practicing next Monday. So we may wait until next Tuesday for that just because of the camp schedule. And we're getting ever closer to that spring game, which is coming up on the 20th. Like I said, less than 3 weeks away now. That's it for now. Appreciate you tuning in as always. Subscribe to Sooners Illustrated. Spring camp, recruiting, going to be the off season in the summer, and then the next year will kick off before you know it. So jump aboard. Now's a great time. Become a VIP member. Also subscribe to the podcast and the YouTube channel as well. For Tom Green, James D. Jackson, I'm Josh Callaway. We'll see you guys next time right back here on the Sooners Illustrated podcast.
See you.